Hello, YouTube. Hello, BookTube. All right, we are back. We are doing a book review. I know this is one of those videos that most of you guys don't care about. You guys are more here for my grouchy opinions on the LGBT FRC 72 up, down, left, right. But today we're talking about books. My number 2 greatest passion in life after traveling. It's been a while since I've done a book review. Actually, since I left the US, whenever that was. And now that I'm back in Germany and I'm only working part-time because I'm actually trying to spend most of my time with my mom and my family and my friends and everybody before I start living my traveling life again, which is, of course, as you guys know, probably should have ironed this shirt, huh? Which you guys know is more where my wishes and dreams and life goals are. But anyway, point is, I'm here. I'm only working part-time. I'm not traveling this much this year, or I won't be traveling this much this year. So now I have time to actually devote more time. How many times have I said time? To my second favorite hobby, as I said, which is reading. And because I already have a whole bunch of books ahead in front of me that I need to discuss with you guys, I thought, it's better that I just... And there's one more. And there's one more. The one that I'm reading right now, but I'm going to review it now because I'm almost done. And it goes into this category. So... What was I saying? Anyway, I have more time to devote to reading again, which I'm actually is making me super happy because I'm also really, really, really in reading mode, especially since the weather in Germany is As you guys who follow my channel know, that's one of the big things I've never liked about Germany is the terrible, terrible weather here. Yeah, so before we have another crazy long intro, let's get started. You guys know that I work backwards. I don't do stars. Sometimes I do stars. Sometimes I do A through F. Sometimes I do 3 stars, 4 stars. I just seem to not have a, consistent way of doing this, which is probably one of the reasons why I've never made it on BookTube. And the fact that I normally trash the books that are really hyped on BookTube, which tend to be very woke books, which you guys know I'm not woke, and books are super anti-capitalism and anti-the white man and the privilege, which is what woke is too, to some degree, which I generally don't like, and a lot of YA, which I actually do read a lot because I'm always trying to look for good lesbian and gay literature. Spoiler alert, it's not in YA, way too woke, always just complete woke crap. Everybody is trans nowadays anyway, in all the YA books. Even if it says it's a gay love story or a lesbian love story, somebody's trans. Anyway, yeah. Alright, so I've actually had a very, very good reading time since I've gotten back to Germany. Some of these are actually before that. So let's just say this is from beginning of March till now end of May, what I've been reading. So I don't have any D's or F's. The lowest thing I have are C's. For those of you guys who do watch my book reviews, you know that for my C categories, those are books that are they're neither great, they're not good, they're not bad, they're just kind of like meh. So these are not the books that I tend to spend that much time talking about because they're neither here nor there for me. When I do have F's, I tend to talk longer about the F's and the A's, so I will do that now again. But if you guys see a book that you have more questions on or you're thinking about reading, you can of course leave a comment and I will tell you why I put it in the C category. Yeah. So C category, this is the book I'm reading right now. It is called Scorched Grace by Margaret Duehi. Sorry if I'm butchering your last name. And yes, I completely bought this book because this cover was everything to me. I saw this cover and I was like, I need to have this book. Not even super caring whether or not it's a good read. Storyline, this is about I hate this word, queer nun who, before she became a nun, was like some kind of crazy chick. She's like covered in tattoos and she's like alternative and she's queer, right? And she is now a nun that is teaching at this school, and the school has a fire, and there is a death, and there is an investigation, and she becomes a suspect, but at the same time, she's trying to do her own investigation on the side. Uh, Writing is decent, plot is okay, it's nothing special. I'm not completely finished with it yet, but I will be finishing it probably in the next day or two, and so once it's done, I can put it in storage and I don't have to carry it around till my next book review video. I'm putting it in here. C category. Then we have Starlight in Our Dreams. This is part of the Zodiac Love Trilogy series by Andreas Dutter. And this is really cool because my niece and I actually buddy read this book, and then we went and we got, there was in Germany it's called a Lesung, a reading. I think that means something different in English, but it's like basically the author came to Stuttgart and he read some chapters out of his book, and then he signed his book. So my niece and I buddy read this. There was also cute little postcards we got. These are like the two main characters. This is a gay romance story. This book is probably the closest you're going to get to a D of all the books that I've read so far. And my sister doesn't want my pictures of my niece on the internet, which I can understand. Otherwise, I would like insert a picture somewhere of my niece and I at the signing. This is actually almost a D. It's like super cliche gay writing, all this like, oh my god, it's so hard to be gay, even though the main character grew up in like Austria, and the other character, they're now in Ireland, they're in Cork, which is like a relatively big city. But of course it's so hard to be gay, and I just was like, I can't. I'm like, you know what, if this took place in Afghanistan or something, I'm like, alright, but I'm like, really, you're trying to make one of these cliche, it's so hard to be queer and bleh. And there was like, I think there was a trans person in the book, and there was like a bi lady in the book, and there was non-binary people in the book, and it was all just too woke for me. And honestly, from all the book signings I've been to, and I've probably been to like a dozen by now, maybe a little less, this was the worst one I've ever been to. Like the author did not seem like he wanted to be there at all. Like even the way he read it was just like, I was like, and I felt really bad because my niece, she inherited my love for reading, which actually my dad had a great love for reading, and my grandfather. This is almost like a generational thing in my family. We all are big readers. And I was like, oh man, this is her first book signing, and we buddy read it together and all this kind of stuff, and then we both were kind of disappointed by this book. So I'm going to say this is a C-. Next C, right here, it's called Stuart Gibbs, Belly Up. Again, I was just really attracted to the cover, but it's a middle-aged book. It's a little mystery. This boy, he lives, or his parents are part of this zoo in Texas, and so he basically lives in the complex of the zoo, and one of the animals, this hippo, dies, and there is a big mystery to solve. It's cute, but it's middle grade, so middle grade books for me always get C's. Which reminds me, there's two books that I'm going to insert pictures at the very end. You guys know I hate editing, so there's 3 books that I don't have here. And those 3, I'll put little pictures at the very end if you are curious to see the cover. That are also C's. One of them is Ever After High, The Secret Diary of Raven Queen by Heather Alexander. Is that even middle grade? That's like lower than that. When I was staying with my friend Tiana, she has a daughter. And because I'm her uncle Marcus, every night I got to read a book to her, and this was the book we read. We read another book together, also from Ever After High, but I didn't write down the title. And it was about the Red Riding Hood character. So I read those 2 books, middle grade. They're both C, but they're cute, for like if you have kids. Another C that I'm going to put the picture at the very end is called The School for Good Mothers by Jessamine Chan. Hope I'm saying that correctly. This book I was actually pretty disappointed by because a lot of people were saying it is the new or the next. Come on, brain. The one with the women where they had to wear the habit. Like all the feminists love it. Oh, they made a show out of it. The red caps. They all have to wear the red caps. All right. Well, when it comes to me, I'll tell you. Anyway, everyone's saying that it's like another version of that about like how women are oppressed. Basically, the storyline is about a woman who one day neglects her child, and because of that, she is sent to a rehabilitation school for mothers. And through the course of the school, things get more and more intense. The mothers are losing more and more rights. More and more creepy things happen. You know, there's a suicide. That's not that much of a spoiler. And Handmaid's Tale. Margaret Atwood. That's the name of the one that they're comparing it to. So I personally already didn't like The Handmaid's Tale. Mostly because I felt like the problem I have with it is I think the storyline, it didn't make sense to me in the time frame they gave us, because it literally was kind of like everything was like it was normal, and then within 5 years that Gilead existed and everybody was already completely aware of the rules and what their roles were, and I was like, I don't know, like 5 or 10 years to me doesn't seem like a long enough period for people to have completely taken in this new lifestyle and just completely forgotten what it's like to be a woman who has equal rights. And so that was something I didn't like about The Handmaid's Tale. Like I just felt the timeline for me was too off to where I could really get into it. Anyway, this is about the School for Good Mothers. Again, I felt like first of all, it took way too long for her to end up in that school. There was, I want to say, the first like at least 1/3 of the book was just her going to lawyers and talking about getting her child back and all this kind of stuff till she finally went into the school. And I also have to say that I'm not really sure what the point of the author was, because on the one hand, people are saying it's like the new Handmaid's Tale and how difficult it is to be a woman and a mother, but she actually legitimately neglected her child. So I'm kind of like, what is the argument here? Like, mothers are allowed to neglect their child and we're supposed to still feel bad for them that their child was taken away, or that they're not allowed to have custody? Like, to me, that was a very, like, the book to me just had a weird premise. I'm kind of like, no, you wrote the character as having really neglected her child in a very severe way, but then we're supposed to like sympathize with her and be like, oh my god, it's so hard, and oh my god, these poor mothers. And I'm just, so the premise of it to me was a little bit strange. Okay, then I read Promise Boys, which I fell in love with. Also a beautiful cover and thing. 3 boys being accused of the murder of the principal of their school, and there's a murder investigation. It's a different writing style, which I thought was kind of interesting and unique. But other than that, I don't think there was anything special about the story. So that's getting a C. And Daughter of the Moon Goddess, oops, I didn't say the author. Promise Boys, Nick Brooks. And Daughter of the Moon Goddess by Sue Lynn Tan. This book is super loved on BookTube. And the funny thing is, if you look at anybody on BookTube discussing this novel, the first thing everybody says is, oh my god, the cover is gorgeous. Oh my god, the cover is gorgeous. And I agree, the cover is gorgeous. But a gorgeous cover, and I know there's that really cliche saying, don't judge a book by its cover. Everybody judges books by their cover, just like everybody judges people by the way they appear in terms of attractiveness and health and, you know, the way they're dressed. That's just part of human nature. But to go so far as to say that it's a good book just because we all agree that it's a gorgeous cover, I thought was a little bit crap. This book is so full of the most generic tropes ever. Every single trope you can think of, it's in this book. Um, Lovers to enemies, evil stepsisters, love triangle, she boss after she gets disappointed and has to figure her stuff out herself, poor to rich, like every single cliche trope is in here. And I just found it so blah. The story to me was so blah. There was nothing unique about it. There was nothing new about it. There was nothing. The writing is gorgeous. That is why it's a C. If the writing wasn't amazing, which I do think Sue Lin Tan is really good at writing in such a way that you really are transported in the scene. Uh, I would say it's flowery, but not too flowery yet. Because like excessively flowery in descriptive writing is not something I personally like. I prefer letting my imagination fill in the gaps. But if the writing had also been bad, this would have probably been my 1D this like in this book review. Because it was just storyline that was every single storyline in this book had already been told 5 million times. Nothing new. So what is it about? It's a fantasy book about a young girl who they all are immortals. This takes place in I kept thinking like Sailor Moon, and she is the daughter of the moon goddess, like it says, and she has to escape where she grew up because the moon goddess didn't disclose to the other immortals that she had a daughter, which she wasn't supposed to have. And she ends up by accident at the crown prince's palace, and of course, like she is his, like, I don't know, servant. And of course, there's tension. Of course, then they fall in love, and then she becomes like a girl boss and has to go and fight these wars because then she gets like training to be like be a girl boss. And then there's the love triangle, and can't tell you too much if you still want to read about that. But and then at the very end, they realize they do love each other, blah blah blah, and everybody has to accept her as this great girl boss, immortal, and she can finally return back to her mother, the moon goddess. Boring as F, in my opinion. Okay, B category, The Sacrifice by Rin Chupeco. Another buddy read I did with my niece. We're doing a lot of buddy reads this year since I'm here, and she loves reading. I love reading. For other people, I think this would be a C. The reason it's a B for me, because I do think it's a plot that I haven't read a million times, so I thought that was kind of interesting. This takes place in the Philippines, and this filming group, they want to make a reality show on an island there that they are being told is haunted. And so this filming group goes there, and there is one local boy who helps the filming group figure out like what the island looks like, where to go, tells them about like the stories that about being haunted or whatever. And surprise, surprise, it really is haunted. And yeah, and all kinds of things happen. Also, the boy that shows him around is a gay boy, and then there's a little gay romance in there, which I like it in this book because it's pretty innocent. Yeah, and it's just something I haven't read before, so I really enjoyed that. Okay, another B, Patrick Rothfuss. Rothfuss? The Name of the Wind. I think a lot of people are going to be shocked that this is a B for me, because a lot of people are saying this is the alternative to Lord of the Rings. It's just as amazing as Lord of the Rings. It's also a fantasy, big epic fantasy novel. It's okay. So basically, the story is about this man whose name I forgot. Redheaded guy. I totally forgot his name, and he is somehow like a special type of wizard, and we are diving in. He escaped his life as a wizard and now just wants to live calmly and working at a tavern. And this man comes who interviews him and wants to know why he gave up his life as a wizard. And through that, we kind of go into his past, about like where he was raised and the life he had to go through and wizarding school and first and attaining magic and all this kind of stuff. Is it as good as Lord of the Rings? In my opinion, it is nowhere near. It's not Lord of the Rings. Nowhere near as Lord of the Rings. The reason I gave it a B is, I mean, it's interesting, but to me, I think a lot of the chapters really dragged. I think, and I think there was a lot of plot points that to me felt like I don't. So one of the things I don't like in books is one of those where if somebody had just said, I don't like this in movies either, because I don't think it's realistic to how people are in real life. When there's a miscommunication, and if people would have just been a little bit more honest or a little bit more forthcoming with their opinion or exactly what they're thinking, this whole big drama wouldn't have happened. And I feel like there's a lot of that in this book, where a lot of people just barely misunderstood each other or specifically left out one or two details or were vague, and that would make the plot continue. And I just don't like that kind of writing. I find that kind of sloppy. Yeah, so that's a B. Then, The Firekeeper's Daughter by Angeline Boulley. This is also kind of like a signed edition. It has a face card on it. I bought the special edition. Actually, my friend Natalia bought me this book. My friend Natalia bought me a couple of these books, to be honest. She's probably the only YouTuber that I've met she's the only person I've met through YouTube that actually is more interested in my book reviews. The other people I've met through YouTube have all been more interested in my political topics, especially regarding the gay community. So her and I share a love for books. She bought me this, but then I saw this one online that both has the colored edges, which you guys know I love, and it has a face card. Of course, these are not called face card. Well, I forget what they're called, but anyway. The moment I saw this book come out, which was about 2 years ago, I was just like, when is it going to come out in paperback? When is it going to come out in paperback? I wanted to read this book so bad. First of all, I love this cover. I think this cover is gorgeous. And it's like Native American, which I'm always like, I do want to read outside of my own knowledge and community, and especially like Native American, I think is so interesting. This could have been an A. I think it drags a little bit in the middle. It could have probably been about 100 pages shorter. Also, I think this book is a little bit woke, but this book is woke in a way where I'm kind of like, you did it okay. You did it in a way where it's not preachy, right? Where it's not like on the nose. Like, it's a little bit woke. You can tell what the author's opinions are, but they wrote it in such a way that it flows and makes sense with the storyline, to where you're not just like, okay, because it covers Native Americans and their lives. The white man is, of course, the bad guy, and the main bad guy is, of course, a white man. But it's written in such a way where I'm just not like, let me guess, the straight white man is the fault for everything. Like, it kind of made sense with the plot. So even though it's woke, it's okay. It's an okay woke book. Almost would have been A, like I said, if it hadn't dragged so much in the middle. Storyline is about a Native American woman who is planning on going to college when her best friend gets killed, and then she gets pulled into the whole story about why her best friend was killed. There's all this in her community. There seems to be a lot of drug abuse and all this kind of stuff, and her best friend was also killed related to the drug abuse. And then this Native American guy, who is a agent for the Native American branch of the CIA or something like that. I'm forgetting what the exact name is. He comes and he asks her to go undercover with him so that they can figure out what is going on with this drug ring and they can help. Maybe a little bit of a love story, but it's not too love story heavy, and which I liked, and definitely very well researched, very well written. I like that the author, there was no loose ends, especially when a book starts getting really thick. There's a lot of like subplots that tend to get lost in books, where you're kind of like, why was this unexplained? What's happening with this? Is this going to ever, you know what I mean? So that didn't happen in this book, so she did a really good job of that. Okay, and last B is by Lana Bastashik. Fang den Hasen. This book takes place in, well, mostly in Bosnia, which is a country I've totally fell in love with. I think Bosnia, Sarajevo, is gorgeous. It's one of my favorite cities in the world, and it's so underrated. Like, nobody goes there. There's no tourism, and I don't get why. It's gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous. Bosnia in general is gorgeous. So when I picked this up and I was like, oh, it takes place in Bosnia, I was like, okay, I should definitely take a read. This is a book about friendship between two women who grew up during the breakup of Yugoslavia. For any of you guys who don't know, that was a very dangerous, it was a war. That breakup was very detrimental to a lot of the countries down there, especially Bosnia, Croatia, and Serbia, and Kosovo. For those of you guys who recognize that as a country, I do. A lot of people don't. And we are kind of talking about their friendship, and it's mirrored in all the problems that were going on during the Yugoslav war. Is that what's called in English? And we start with we're 12 years in the future after they've already lost contact with each other, and one of the friends calls the other one and says, hey, I need your help. Please come back to Bosnia and help me out. And the other friend goes back to Bosnia, and then we have like this dual perspective where we're in the past and we learn about their friendship when they were kids, and then we're in the future and we're talking about like the issues they have with each other. Really enjoyed all of that. Really excellent writing. I like that the author is talking about friendship as just another form of relationship, because I think that's something that isn't talked about enough. It's always like when we think of relationships, we only think of romantic ones, right? But friendships, family, co-workers, like these are all types of relationships that also require time and effort and knowledge and thinking and listening to each other, right? And if you want those to grow and to become better, you also need to be there for each other and to think about the other person's feelings and thoughts and background and such like that. So I like that she really focused on it. The reason it's getting a B is because I really did not like the ending. The ending was very like, it's an open-ended ending, which is something I personally am generally not a fan of. I don't want to say it never works, but generally I don't like that. I generally kind of like having things tied up at the end. So the ending to me was a little bit rushed, and it kind of just didn't go anywhere, and I'm like, wait a minute. So where are we now? What's going on? Okay, then we are going into the A's. This is my A minus. The Marriage Portrait by Maggie O'Farrell. This is again a book where we are partially in the past, partially in the current time, supposedly. And this is the book about Estasia? No. I already forgot her name. Lucrezia. Lucrezia, this book is historical fiction, so these people did actually exist in the real world. This is in the 1500s. Lucrezia grows up in the very powerful and wealthy Medici family, and when she is very young, she gets married off to a duke, and 1 year after they get married, she ends up dead. This is all stuff you can read on Wikipedia, like it's not a spoiler to the book. And there is historical back and forth about whether or not she was killed by the Duke. Some say that she died of tuberculosis or of some kind of fever, and some other people are saying that she was murdered. First of all, I want to say I love this author. A fly just came in here. 2 flies just came in here. So sorry if you guys hear flies in the background. And love Maggie O'Farrell's writing. I think she's a super gifted. When I first saw this, like the writing is so huge, I already was like, oh, this is probably like a self-published book and this is going to suck. But excellent writer. Oh my God. It has been such a long time since I've read a book where I had to look up so many words, the meaning of them, which is actually something I personally really like because I feel like reading should expand your horizons and not make you dumber. So that's something I really enjoyed about it. Um, the storyline, I think, if you like historical fiction, I think you're really going to enjoy it. If you don't, I think this is going to be a C for you. So yeah, I basically already told you. So it's the story of Lucrezia. We see her in her childhood, then we see her in the present day, which is like within the year when she's thinking she's in the book. It's written that she thinks she is going to get murdered, um, and yeah, it's a back and forth. We see how she was like a precocious child, and she was kind of forced into this marriage, and then that. So, but I really enjoyed this. I'm trying to go really fast because I feel like my camera's gonna die. Okay, now we're in the regular A category. This is another book I'm gonna put a picture at the end. It's called Blindness by Jose Saramago. That was actually a book that was left from last year's theme, which was problematic authors. I don't remember why it was problematic. I think people say that he was homophobic, I think was the reason he was a problematic author. This book was excellent. Completely different topic I've never read about before, if anything at all. Basically, we have a worldwide contagion where people all of a sudden just go blind. And what happens in a world where people are getting blind and nobody can figure out why this is happening, and they first start to put people into like prisons and other or like concentration camps or whatever to keep them away from the populace that hasn't gone blind, and it doesn't work because more and more people still keep getting blind, and there's only one person who doesn't go blind, and we see most of the novel written from her perspective because she's the only one who doesn't go blind. And basically, because of this contagion and because we can't figure out why it's happening, society just completely falls apart, as you can imagine, because most people are reliant on, and then it almost turns into like a Lord of the Flies where people start killing each other and because they need food and because they need access to water, and there's just not enough resources and nobody knows how to figure it out. Excellent. I've never read anything about this before. I don't care how problematic he is. That is an excellent book. 100% recommend you guys read it. Okay, then another A is Elternabend by Sebastian Fitzek. This is a really cute story between this man and this woman. Basically, both of them do something illegalish, and they're running from the police. And while they're running from the police, they see this bus pull up, and they just jump on the bus to try to get away. And then it turns out this bus is going to a parent-teacher meeting on like an island. It's like a weekend getaway for parent and teachers to talk about their class. And then these two at the last minute decide to pretend that they are the parents of this one child because it was the two parents that were missing. So they pretended and take on this role, and all these like funny things happen and all these weird coincidences. It really made me laugh. It was hilarious. Okay, then The Golem and the Genie by Helene Wecker. This was another book that I've been dying to read forever, and so I finally did. I thought this was such an interesting concept, especially like with the golem being like a Jewish tradition and the genie being like an Arabic or Muslim kind of fantasy creature. The story is basically about a female golem and a male genie that find themselves in New York City, but they're kind of trapped there by circumstance. And obviously everybody else is just a regular human. And we kind of learn about the difficulties that they're having being forced to live among humans and having nobody that is like them, until the day comes where they meet and they build up this kind of strange friendship. The writing is excellent, even though this is again a little bit of a longer novel. I never got bored at all. It's also historic. I think it takes place in like the 1820s or something like that. So New York is still like kind of new, and people are still immigrating there, and we learn about like the the Jewish community being new in Ellis Island, and the Syrian community, which is where the genie then lives, and what it's like. And we learn about, it's really historic in the writing, and you can really picture about like how old New York would have been like. And the thing that I think I love the most is the fact that the author chose to, there was a little bit of like, are they going to date? Are they going to be more than friends? But then in the end, they end up being friends. And I really like that because, again, I don't think everything always has to be a romance and a love novel. So I really enjoyed that. Excellent. I knew I was going to get cut off. Ah. Okay, so highly recommend. The only thing I don't like is whoever was in charge of producing this paperback, please don't make pages like this, like these frayed pages. I hate that crap. Only had one book left. This is my 1A plus, and it's called Jamila by Cengiz Aytmatov. This takes place in Kazakhstan. Very, very small book. And it is a story about this woman called Jamila, who is forced into a marriage, and her husband, who ends up having to go to World War I to fight on the side of the Russians, because Kazakhstan belonged to the greater Russian Empire at that time. And the younger brother kind of also falls in love with her. She's the most beautiful girl in town, which I think is kind of a boring trope. But he also falls in love with her and spends more time with her. And the book is written from his perspective about how amazing she is and how different she is. But then another man who they're not really sure who he is, they think he's a runaway from the war, comes back to town, and basically Jamila and him, is that a spoiler? I mean, it's such a thin book, sorry if I'm spoiling it, but they basically fall in love, and then there's all this drama because she's already married and what's going to happen. Very short book, but written beautifully. I mean, obviously it's translated from Kazakh to, I read it in German. I love that it's from a different place and a different country. It's not woke at all. It's really descriptive in a way that you can really imagine being there. And yeah, it's just a fun read. I really enjoyed it, and a quick read. So, sorry it became 2 videos and pictures of the 3 books I don't have here at the end. So, let me know if you guys have any questions for any of these books. If you have any recommendations to read, can't say I'm going to get to them. Haven't even done anything off of what this year's theme is, which is to be reading books that are on my TBR for a very long time, which none of these books were. Ooh, which is not good. Not going after my TBR, not going after my reading theme. So yeah, comments, feedback. Have you read any of these? Do you want to read any of these? Do you want to have any more information? Let me know, and take care, you guys. Be safe. Bye.